Hello Steve, how are you? Hope you're well. We're almost ready to go, mate. Hope you're all well. Beautiful. I think we are online. Connection is good. And yeah, we're good to go. All right. Wonderful. Alrighty, before we get started, talking about the real issue, we'll just have a quick recap of what happened over North Queensland over the course of the last week or so, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and know what went good, what went well, what didn't go well, and then we'll move on to the more pressing matters, which is the development of a low pressure system in the Northern Territory, and then its potential flow-on effects. Alrighty, by the way, folks, my name's Chris Nitso, Weather IQ's lead forecaster, and we do these live updates. They're informal. Usually I'm only in a singlet, so today I've got a shirt. It was cardio day today. We don't talk about cardio day. It's a bane of my existence. Worst day of the week. So these updates are informal, and we go through some of the major weather that we need to talk about for Northern Australia. It's not Queensland centric tonight. It's more Northern Territory WA, because Queensland's going to have a bit of time off over the next week when it comes to weather. All right, but before we get started, we've had the end result of our last 7 days of significant weather through northeast Queensland. Saw some good rainfall from basically the cutoff was Townsville, anywhere up to about the Cape York Peninsula region. Our maximum rainfall total was about 0.5 metre out there at Cardwell Gap over the past week. Generally falls in the area between Innisfail and Townsville were above expectations, and generally falls between Innisfail and Cooktown, or just south of Cooktown, were a little bit below expectations. Falls in the Tablelands met expectations. Falls around Bowen exceeded expectations. Falls in the inland parts of North Queensland exceeded expectations, and that's bad news for Ainslie. You would have seen some very significant images of flooding and that sort of thing over Ainslie. That was because a lot of the heaviest rainfall went from where it was supposed to be, which was the Gulf country, into the northern goldfields and upper Flinders, because our low moved a little further south and east. So what that meant is that the Gulf country probably didn't see as heavy a rainfall as it should have, or as it was expected to. They still got great falls, 150 to 200s, but those falls were supposed to be more around the 300-ish mark. But their rain may not have completely finished just yet. More on that in a second. And the northern goldfields and upper Flinders probably doubled to tripled their rainfall expectations. So this area here was particularly poorly forecast when it came to rainfall totals. The heaviest rain was further east and south of where it was supposed to be over the past week, and the areas further west and north in the Gulf country didn't get as much as they would have over the week. So, as I say, big expectations were exceeded across the northeast coastline, especially between Townsville and Tully. Those numbers were well above what was expected. I think the expectations were around 200-ish millimetres max, and we had quite a number of places here that have received 300 pluses. All right, as we go further to the west now, our focus tonight, by the way, is the development of a low. This is the same low, or this feature is the same feature that affected Queensland, but it's just become an elongated feature, and it's about to tighten up again over the course of the next few days. So we're going to use the Northern Australian overlay, and we're going to have a look here at the far north overlay, and we're going to have a look at the gradual development of this system. We're going to go through a overview, and then we'll go through all the different track forecasts and possibilities. By the way, folks, our major sponsor is up there on the top left, Fair Income Builds Townsville. So if if you're in the market for a shed safe accredited shed, check those guys out. And we have a subscription service. That's the way we fund our operations, is through our subscription service. So you can go to that website at the top right, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe, if you'd like all the details well ahead of time. And just to give you an idea, today's subscription, what do we do today? I think 6 or 7 forecasts. So because there's not much going on through Queensland, we just did a Queensland Weather Week. Cairns, Townsville, Mackay were combined into one update. Central and South Queensland were combined into one update. Then we had Cape York Peninsula, the Carpentaria District and the Gulf Country. Top end, Kimberley, we're doing daily updates on them at the moment for obvious reasons. They'll become obvious reasons shortly. And the North Oz Tropics Watch, looking at any cyclone threats over the coming fortnight. So we go into in-depth analysis of that every single day of the wet season. All right, so as we continue now into what we've got to discuss. So let's have a look here at the overview of what's expected to happen. We're seeing a development of a weak circulation with possible multi-centres. So there's a centre through the central NT and there's a centre near Borroloola. The Borroloola centre is the one that we're interested in. So what we're going to see here is a fairly elongated system, i.e. an oval-shaped system. And then that oval-shaped system looks as though it will tighten up into a singular circulation and track west through the NT. We're pretty confident on that westerly motion. It's just the timing of the westerly motion that's a bit difficult at the moment. One of the reasons why the timing is difficult is if you notice what's going on in the NT and in the Arafura Sea to the north of the NT, there's a fairly fresh to strong northwesterly, and there's actually a bit more of a northwesterly that comes diving down from the northern hemisphere, and it comes through and it enhances the monsoonal flow. And at the same time as it's enhancing the monsoonal flow, you've got to imagine that that monsoonal flow goes through a depth of the atmosphere and tries to slow down the low pressure system from moving west. So when we look at the steering flow at the 3.5 to 4 kilometre level, we can see that the low should by rights be moving to the west fairly quickly. But this flow to the north of it, not quite strong enough to drag it over to Queensland again. So it is strong enough to decelerate it though. So it won't be moving as quickly to the west as if the monsoon wasn't as strong. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here, and what we're finding here is that the end result should be a westerly motion. You can see at all levels of the atmosphere, the east-west component of the flow is stronger than the west-east component of the flow. So no threat of this one pushing across Queensland at this stage. There's nothing there that suggests that. The monsoon would have to be a hell of a lot stronger to allow that to happen, and we're not seeing evidence of that. So let's continue with what we are seeing evidence of. So this low tracking to the west. Now, sometime on Sunday or Monday, it crosses the border. And there it is, crossing the border around the northeast Kimberley. Now, you'll notice here, very strong monsoon for the top end. So this is a feature of the next 4, 5, 6 days, is this really strong monsoon for the top end. Really good opportunities for heavy rainfall, monsoonal squalls, large waves, large seas, all sorts of crazy cool monsoonal weather up there for the Northern Territory's top end as this thing's pushing westwards. Now, beyond Sunday into Monday, the system slows down. And the reason it slows down is because we have multiple steering mechanisms operating on the system at that time. So we have a ridge, which is trying to drive the system to the west. We have another ridge here, which is making sure it doesn't come back to Queensland. But in between them, we've got a little trough. See this little thing here? This little shape here. See that there? Right, so that little shape there tells us that there's an upper trough. And that upper trough is just weakening the two systems that are trying to pull this system westwards. Okay, so the system slows down. The cyclonic system slows down for a little bit of time. Now, eventually the upper trough lets go and the system then once again accelerates to the west. And you can see getting off the coast in that southwest western Kimberley area. That's where we expect it to get off the coast. So anywhere from about 80 Mile Beach through to the Mitchell Plateau, somewhere in there is where we expect it to pop off the coast, probably on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how long the upper trough just stalls its westerly motion. All right, from there, the system's expected to maintain or redevelop that westerly motion because, once again, our thunderstorm or our tropical cyclone steering winds are going to drive it west. So you can see here, the ridge located through southern and central WA gets reinforced, pulls the cyclone to the west. By rights, it should harmlessly pass to the west. but there's a little twist in the tail coming. So let's go over to Western Australia now. Let's have a look at the twist in the tail. So this ridge is firmly in play through Thursday and Friday. Now, watch what happens to the ridge on Friday night, Saturday. See how there's a ridge, I don't have my little crayons, but there's a ridge just off your screen to the west, and there's a ridge just off your screen to the east. And there's a little bit of a gap in between the ridges. Cyclones sniff out that gap. They love that little gap. And so what this system may do as we get into Friday night, Saturday, is sniff out that little gap and try and move into that little gap between the ridges. All right, so cyclones can't move straight into a ridge, but they can sniff out a little weakness in the ridge, and the moment they do, they want to dip southwards when they do that. But remember, the system would have been moving west for quite some time here, so it would have been moving west for a couple of days, and then it can't just sniff out the gap and go straight for it. There's going to be a deceleration process, a turning process. Cyclones can't just move one way and then change and move the other way. It's a process of slowing down that first direction of motion and then accelerating into the second direction of motion. So the idea here is that the system may slow down, and you can see there it starts to show an inclination to move southwards. All right, so that's the difficult part of the forecast, though. Isn't so much that we don't know where these ridges are, it's because we don't know how fast the cyclone's going to be moving. So, for example, if the cyclone was moving a little slower when that ridge weakens, which is expected to be Friday night or Saturday, so let's say the cyclone hypothetically was moving a little bit slower, the ridge would start weakening when the cyclone was north of Port Hedland or Karratha. And from there, it's not going to go straight down into them, but from there, it would start to curve more towards the coast from that point. Okay, so this is what leaves us with a little bit of doubt, and there's a considerable amount of doubt about whether or not the system can hit the coastline at the back end of next week, is because of those two ridges and that little weakness that you can see in the center of your screen there. So that little weakness is where the system will try to move towards, but if it's moving really quickly to the west, it will take a long time to slow down and then come into that weakness. So it's a tricky little process here as we go between days 5 to 8. So what do we know so far? We know that there's a low. We know that it's going to move west. We're very confident on that. It might be slow moving to start with, but it will eventually move west. All right, so as we go, we can see here that our total accumulated precipitation forecast for the Northern Territory especially is very high. We can see convergence will set up between Mornington Island and Borroloola for the next couple of days, and then that will push west with the cyclone. And you can see here where it slows down in the North Kimberley because of that little upper trough that I showed you. When it slows down in the North Kimberley, there's a chance there that it also provides very significant rainfall on the eastern side of it, and also on the northwestern flank where the monsoonal winds are coming together or converging north of wherever it ends up crossing out to sea. All right, beyond that, how close it stays to the coast will determine how much rain the Pilbara gets from it. So if it continues, let's say it got out here, up here in the Mitchell Plateau, and kept moving west from there, you wouldn't see that rain anywhere near the coast. You'd see it along the track out here. All right, let's say it got out at 80 Mile Beach. You'd probably see heavier rain because it would be hugging the coast the whole time. All right, so there's a few variations about where it crosses the coast out to sea, and then how it will then impact the Pilbara region because of it. So that's the generally accepted scenarios. Now, if we take a look at our different modelling for this particular system, and we'll kick off without wind speeds. So this will allow us to see all the models all together. It'll become a bit of a jumbly mess here, but I'll try and talk you through it. So you can see here that we've got, in general, models suggesting that already by tomorrow morning, we might start to see a westerly motion of the system. That's because of the elongation. So because it's an oval-shaped low, that the western part of the oval will start to tighten in, and the eastern part of the oval will start to move west. All right, so the end result is the low pressure system moving west. As we get into Sunday and Monday, we can see here that generally the system is slowing down. There's a few models that don't slow it down altogether and just continue tracking it west. These are the models we wouldn't care too much about, because with these models, almost every single one, if it doesn't slow down before getting off the coastline, if it just continues to move west quickly, almost every single model here, if not, no, almost every, there's two I think that hit the coast. Almost every single model tells us this thing's going out to the west, don't worry about it, we're gibbering about nothing. All right, so the ones we care about aren't these ones that push fast to the west. The ones we care about are the ones that hold the system back, that haven't gone past the coastline there by Tuesday morning. So these are the ones that concern us. All right, when we look at just isolating the models that hold the cyclone and move it slower over the course of the 72 to 96 hour period now, what we find is that the system has a much better chance and a much higher probability of impacting the coastline. So you wouldn't think about it, but that forward speed that the system shows just in the next 4 days is going to be crucial in determining what are the real strike chances of this system on the Pilbara. That's one of those things where if you get it wrong at the start, the error amplifies. If you get it right at the start, you can start to isolate the probabilities and the possibilities a little better. So the key here is going to be how fast does this move to the west in the next 4 days? If it's already off the coast by Monday, well, we could pretty much kiss any sort of coastal impact goodbye, because from there we know that the ridge weakening doesn't happen until Friday night or Saturday. Okay, so that's why it's so important that we monitor that forward speed. So even though it's over land, even though it's going to be weak as piss, doesn't matter. All of that counts. All right, all of that counts. The slower it moves, the more likely in the end result will be that we'll see a coastal strike. The faster it moves in the next 4 days, less likely we'll ever see it come anywhere near land once it gets off the coast. All right. So that's it there. Now that's without looking at any type of intensity estimates. Let's now start adding intensity potential into the equation. Oh, just let me play this through for you, sorry. Just let me play this through for you. It becomes a bit of a jumbly dotted mess here, but generally speaking, you can see what's happening, right? The system's moving west, but there is still an uncomfortable amount of model members that push it onto the coastline. All right, now I want to go back to the individual model ensembles, and I want to talk about intensities. Okay, so most of the modelling, once again, that has it crossing the coast and out to sea by Monday, so that's these ones out here that have already got it out, you can see almost all of them gone out to sea. That doesn't mean it's going to be weak, it just means that it's going out to sea, and you can see the average intensity here is probably about a category 3 or 4 as it pushes out to the west. These other ones that hold the system back a little bit, let's monitor their intensity forecasts. So that's these ones in here, the ones that hold back a little bit, don't move as fast. You can see that generally speaking, they're not quite as strong as the ones that move to the west, because they're consistently interacting with the landmass, because they're close enough to be interacting with the landmass for quite some time. But there's still a considerable amount of them that are getting to that category 3 range or category 2 to category 3 range as they're down here through the Pilbara. So the other thing we've got to look at is that speed of motion, not just to the west here, but once it gets off the coast. If it continues moving west quickly, and here's a great example actually, when we play this animation through, I want you to pay attention. Pay attention to the ones that move real quick. So that's these ones out here, right? They're the ones moving real quick. So at this point, Thursday, Friday, there's still no weakness in the ridge, and they're already gone. They're not coming back from out there. All right, so the ones we care about are the ones that are moving slow. The ones moving slow, because we know the ridge is going to break down on Friday, there's a chance there that they will duck down into the coastline. All right, so all of that nuance in the forecast tracks. When you just look at that, that looks to you like a dotted mess. All right, but when you get the dynamics explained to you, you understand the importance of forward speed of motion. That's the key here for the next 5 to 7 days. And that's the key for a tropical cyclone impact or a harmless track to the west. Okay? All right, so that's our main system. Now, I do want to talk to you about a second system. Second system's expected to form, not seeing it there, let's see it on this one. All right, a second system's expected to form around Lockhart River. Yeah, there it is there. So second system's going to form sometime on Tuesday or Wednesday around Lockhart River. Pretty weak old thing. So you can see there, pretty weak old thing. And this system is expected to move west into the NT. So it's expected to form in there somewhere and then track west into the NT. Let's have a quick look at that second low because I know there'll be some Queenslanders still in here that'll go, oh, what about that one? What if it comes south? It won't come south, but let's have a look at why and let's have a look at what we expect with that second system, okay? That way the Queenslanders can just, because I know what Queenslanders are like, they'll go off about it and they'll start to get all panicky and shit. So let's get rid of that panicky stuff. All right, so as we look at next week, so we've got a monsoon which contracts back to the north. That really strong monsoon across the top end starts to weaken from about Monday or Tuesday next week. Once that cyclone pushes off the coast of the Kimberley, that monsoon should start to weaken. Now, at the same time for Queenslanders, a big ridge comes in, right? So this ridge, it's not a very stable, it's not a very dry air mass. It's reasonably stable. It's not a very dry air mass though. But what we do see with the monsoon letting go and the ridge developing through the deep layer atmosphere across the state, we can see deep moisture transportation, which is great. That means lots of showers will come back to northeast Queensland. But it also means that this cyclone, if it developed, or even if it's a weak low, it has absolutely zero chance of pushing south because this ridge is firmly in play. Cyclones or lows will not travel directly into a ridge. They will ride the ridge and look for a weakness. There is absolutely zero weakness in this ridge. You can see the east-west motion is very strong. The west-east motion is very weak. And so from here, our low pushes to the west, gets over into the Gulf, and then gets over into the NT. All right, now, there are variations. Some of the models show it a little bit further south. In fact, I think the average shows it down around Group as opposed to up around Nhulunbuy. But overall, there's no real southward chance of motion there. So Queenslanders, you can rest easy. But what we will see over Queensland, obviously, with that sort of ridging, is an increase in shower activity, especially if we've got that deep layer atmosphere driving an east to east northeasterly through the state. Okay, so great opportunity there to pick up a bit of shower activity if you're on the northeast coast. But the real focus, back over to the Northern Territory. So what this would do for the Northern Territorians is it would once again drive up and give them a second burst of rainfall. So they would have had a big burst of rain coming from this cyclone as it pushes west over the next few days. Big burst of shower and storm activity, rain activity, squall line activity. And then they'll get a second burst when that Queensland thing comes westwards on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's the expectation there, and you see a second burst of rainfall that develops through the region. So combining the two systems, we get significant rainfall around the northern top end and even into the central parts of the territory. So even into the northern half of the Tanami, the Barkly district, they're going to see some pretty healthy totals. And generally, the top end should be able to get yourselves 50 plus mils, possibly 100 plus mils out of this. With the focus, just be aware the focus here isn't Darwin. Okay, so when I say top end, Darwin is not the focus here. This is a widespread rain event. Darwin joins in, but absolutely at no stage is Darwin the focus of this. All right, so for those of you Darwinians who are here, you are not the focus of this. You're just getting in on the action. All right. So just be aware there and don't have these thoughts that this whole thing's going to be over you. Okay. It's not. It's going to be over the entire area and you're just part of that area. It's oftentimes, when I talk to Darwin people, they often think that they're going to be the focus of attention here and they're not. And then they get disappointed. And there's no sign that any of this is going to be focused in on Darwin, okay? Darwin will join in and Darwin will have lots of squally showers and storms and all sorts of jazz, but they won't be the focus here. If anyone's going to be the focus, it'll be the JBG coastline where there'll be convergence around Port Keats the Borroloola coastline, where there'll be convergence for the next 24 to 48 hours associated with this Lows development, and then the East Kimberley, Western NT border areas, where the low will slow down on Sunday, Monday before dragging itself out to the west. So that period is when we're going to see big rainfall in those areas, but everyone else is joining in with showers, thunderstorms, and squally conditions. The other thing we do need to talk about for the top end are just going to be the winds. Winds are going to be very, very strong through the top end, and we can see here 25 to 35 knot gusts, pretty constant throughout this next 3 to 5 days, and there's potential there for 35 to 45 gusts, depending on exactly how close to the coast the low gets. Alrighty, so that's where we are at the moment, folks. So that's all I've got for you. That's our analysis of what's going on and why it's happening. And yeah, so if you've got any questions, I'll prioritise any questions about the NT and WA right now because they're the focus. And then if we've got no NT WA questions, I'll go back and see if we've got any Queensland ones, because Queensland is really not interesting when it comes to weather over the next week and a half in the grand scheme of things, unless you live in the Cape. If I've got Cape questions, I'll prioritise them as well. All right. Hey, Steve. How you going, mate? Liz, good evening. Nitso, good evening, Liz. Thanks for joining us. Brad Perry. G'day, Brad. Oh, you're on YouTube. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. What am I doing here? Actually, I've got to click on YouTube just in case someone's sending us any what's the name chats, super chats. Fee, evening. It's latest starting. Will replay. No worries, Fee. Heath, catch up later at work. I'll get the replay later. No worries, Heath. Daryl, g'day, Daryl. Daryl's from Darwin. Yeah, you're in for a bit of a shellacking there over the next few days, mate. Let's have a quick look at Darwin. As I say, not the focal point of attention, Daryl, but there should be enough attention paid. Let's have a look. Yeah, a lot of stuff around. Yeah, a lot of garbage around Darwin today, isn't there? There's not much substance to a lot of this stuff. Yeah, let's have a look. What's the forecast radar telling us? Yeah, lots more of the same tomorrow. Oh, there we go. We get a nice little burst of convection there around about lunchtime tomorrow, by the looks of that. So that's probably the next bit of Darwin interest. Probably about lunchtime tomorrow, and that low should start to move west at some stage tomorrow. Fingers crossed, maybe not. Doesn't, those are the things when we've got that elongated low, we don't know how quickly it's going to start moving west because we don't know what part of that elongated low is going to start to develop. So, the longer it sticks around, the more rain that the top end will get, and the more chance it then has of crossing the coast as a cyclone in the Pilbara. So the Pilbara folk will probably be going, half of them will want the cyclone, half of them won't because they really need the rain. So, for Pilbara, the slower this thing moves in the next 3 days or so, the more the alarm bells start going. Rightio. So that's that one. Oh, I just wanted to have a look here at the wind gusts around Darwin as well. Just looking at whether or not we're going to get some squalls. Yeah, probably not as many just because there's not much weather going on there at the moment. But yeah, tomorrow around that lunchtime, just after lunch. Yeah, there we go. Just gets a bit squally around Darwin with the development of those showers and thunderstorms. So there, that's probably what Darwin's expecting there. And then there'll be plenty more opportunities for Darwin, especially once the low gets down here into the Kimberley NT border. That's when Darwin will start to see significant winds and squalls and rain areas and that sort of thing, when that monsoon convergence is probably just south of them, but they'll be joining in on that party. Brian, we need rain on the Gold Coast. Yeah, not much coming for you, Brian. I'll just go back and have a look at any NTWA questions first, and then we'll come back and have a look at the Gold Coast for you. Anthony, here for the gun show. No gun show today, mate. It's cardio day. We hate cardio. Well, I hate cardio day. It's the bane day of my existence. It's 90 minutes. My first 30 minutes is just high-intensity rubbish that I want to puke, and then the next 60 minutes is slow, blah. I just want the day over. Anyway, Thursdays, always cardio day. It's the worst day of the week. I don't know how you people can do that shit. I really don't. And more than once a week. I don't know how you people can do that shit more than once a week. Like, speaking from a lifting background, I just can't do cardio. It's just rubbish. Feels like A, a waste of time. B, I'm puking for no reason. And yeah, just rubbish. Anyway, less said about cardio day, the better. Daniel, hi from planet Earth. Hi, Daniel. I'd hope you're here. David, evening, Nitso. Good evening, Dave. Patrick, mustering end of the week will rain for sure. Thanks for doing these updates, mate. No worries, Pat. Tammy, thanks, Nitso. No worries, Tammy. Hey, Nitso, any other heat waves coming Rocky way? So have I got no questions about NTWA? Oh, that's disappointing. Maybe we don't have many followers from there. Oh, well. We'll do these anyway, just in case anyone's bullshitting the WA folk. All right, let's have a look at Rocky, and then I'll come back to... No, actually, Gold Coast we're going to have a look at. All right, and Gold Coast. Right, the big thing with the Gold Coast, we got a that trophy low, that attempted an East Coast low off the coastline, so pretty windy for the Gold Coast, but we're not really expecting a lot of rain. No, you're going to see a bit of shower activity. You can see some heavier falls, some heavier showers up around the Fraser Island area and the Fraser coastline, but you're not actually seeing much in the way of Gold Coast shower activity, I wouldn't imagine. There'll be a few around. It'll be cloudy. It'll be a little bit drizzly occasionally, but yeah, any heavier rainfall aspect of that low is going to be up there to the northeast of you. But as I say, a bit of cloud cover and maybe a bit of drizzle. Total accumulated precip for the next couple of days on the Gold Coast is 2/5 of bugger all, I'd imagine. Yeah. Not much going on there for you, mate. And look, to be honest, there's nothing major on the way, but I will tell you this. We do start to see some thunderstorm activity coming back into the area there around early in the week. Yeah, Monday. There it is there. Northern New South Wales coming up into southeast Queensland Monday. And I think there's a few other days through the week there. Yeah, there's another one. As we get into Friday, Thursday and Friday, there's a chance there for storms. Look, it does get a bit more interesting as we go into the second week of the forecast. There's a little bit more rain to be had. But, yeah, nothing major on the cards, at least in the next 7 to 9 days, let's say that. Rocky. Rocky. Hey, Nitso, any other heat waves coming to Rocky? Let's have a look, mate. I think you're going to get a little bit warmer in Rocky when this low gets a little closer. So let's have a look here at our max temperatures. No, not today. Today's rubbish. Let's have a look at Friday's max. Wrong model. That one. So I'm sure did I not click the right model there? All right, Friday's max. No. What's going on here? Oh, no, there we go. All right, so, yeah, Rocky's around that mid-30s tomorrow, just because you're not getting that strong southeaster there at Rocky. You're getting a southerly wind at Rocky, and that's going to drive a bit of heat into Rocky. And then I'll just look at the ADFD here for you with regards to maxes. So, yeah, a little bit warmer tomorrow compared to today. Saturday is going to be about the same. Sunday is going to be about the same. Monday is going to be about the same. Tuesday a little bit cooler because we start getting an easterly on Tuesday. Wednesday, and we've probably got a few showers and storms around on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, nothing there, mate, that would make you go, wow. Just the next couple of days are going to be pretty ordinary, just because that little low to the east of you, it's going to be driving a southerly through Rocky, and that's never fun for anyone. It doesn't give you any real rain, and it just makes life pretty miserable and warm. Yeah. Alicia, okay, this might sound creepy, but your voice is very calming. Not creepy at all. I've heard that before. I can't stand my own voice, but I hear it hours a day because of all the forecasts I do for the subs. Hey, Nitso, any heavy falls coming Mossman way? FNQ. No, mate. Nothing on the cards at the moment for Mossman. We'll have a quick look. Where would I find Mossman? I think I've got Mossman as an actual overlay, don't I? No, I don't. I thought I did. Oh, Daintree, I think we call it. Yeah, Daintree. All right. Look, there's nothing major on the way for the Daintree, mate. Nothing there today. Tomorrow, a couple of showers, I think. Yeah, a couple of showers just inland of the Daintree. When it comes to actual major rainfall for the Daintree, One thing you're going to be looking for is that second low we talked about on Wednesday up there around Lockhart River. If that forms closer to maybe Cape Melville or even as far south as Cooktown, I know there were a couple of models that had it as far south as Cooktown, that's where you might get a bit of rain, and that will happen on Wednesday or Tuesday into Wednesday. And you can see there a little bit of colour on the chart there telling you getting quite a few showers there as we go into Tuesday, Wednesday. And then once the low moves to the west, mate, we open up so that low that we're talking about moves over to NT, and then we open up a nice little moisture channel through a deep layer atmosphere, and this should be able to drive quite a bit of heavy shower activity with lots of breaks, but quite a bit of heavy shower activity on those favoured areas like the Daintree and the Kasserine coastlines as we move through the back half of next week. But there's no individual massive area of rain that we're seeing through the Daintree. But yeah, sure, there will be a fair increase in showers from about midweek next week, maybe even Tuesday next week, associated with firstly the low to the north. And then once the low to the north pushes west, we then get that nice easterly flow. So we should get a lot of shower activity coming in from that, mate. Yeah, so that's you there, Alex. Stephen, cheers, Nitso. Love your service. Thanks for supporting us, Steve. All right, with no more questions, especially no more questions about the NT. Oh, that's very disappointing. I would have thought a lot of NT folk would be interested in their monsoon, or WA folk at least be interested in the possibility of a cyclone. Anyway. Right, so if you'd like to support us, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe on the top right, folks, and you've got options there from $32.95 all the way to $69.95 for our most expensive service. But if you just want the forecast without anything else, it's just $32.95 a year. Doesn't break the bank. It's worth your money. As I say, 6 or 7 updates a day, and we keep you abreast of everything that's happening and keep you away from that bullshit that social media offers you, all right? There's a lot of bullshit on social media that you look at, you panic, and the whole thing, then you start panicking, you send it to your mates who then start panicking, and oh my God, it just goes on and on. You don't get that here, all right? If we talk about something, we talk about it because it's real. All right, have a good night. Thanks for watching. 3 nights' time, Sunday night, folks, Sunday night. NT and WA is our focus again, and maybe the Cape with that second low. All right, so NT, WA, they're our focus